Have you ever been super excited and passionate about something, like learning to play an instrument or wanting to become an astronaut? We all have, but by a show of hands, how many of you have ever been super excited and passionate about something, only to have lost interest in that thing for no apparent reason? All right, all of your hands should be up. That thing you experienced, the process of wanting to do something and then suddenly changing your mind out of nowhere, is what I call temporary inspiration. So you're probably wondering, what exactly can you do about temporary inspiration? Unfortunately, I can't actually solve that problem, but what I can do is at least share my take on it. I believe there are 3 reasons why we all experience temporary inspiration. First off, let's start with the fact that we don't always recognize the amount of work we have to put into something we want to do. Take learning to play basketball, for example. We're always told that practice makes perfect, and it's true, but what we don't realize is that means a lot of practice. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Malcolm Gladwell's 10,000-hour rule, that in order to accomplish mastery in a given skill, 10,000 hours of deliberate practice are required to become a professional in that field. And although it's been disputed, it still applies in many cases. If you want to be great at basketball, you have to spend hours and hours actually playing and studying the sport. You see, we expect instant results, and that's really unrealistic. In the 21st century, we've become accustomed to seeing what appear to be instant results, but they're really not. With easy access to the internet, we can look anything up in a matter of seconds. We observe instant results everywhere, and we're growing more and more impatient with everyday things like waiting in line for a coffee, and even a website taking a few extra seconds to load frustrates us. Commitment requires patience, and we're starting to see a lack of it. When you commit to something, you need to recognize the amount of work you're going to have to put in, or you're going to end up with a pretty big obstacle in your way. Speaking of obstacles, the second factor at play is that we usually encounter a roadblock that leaves us thinking, what's next? Oftentimes, we want to give up on what we're doing because we don't know how to face or approach that obstacle. However, we forget that without obstacles, we can't grow as individuals. Ever heard the quote, "Of course it's hard. It's supposed to be hard. If it were easy, everyone would do it. Hard is what makes it great." Yeah, well, it's definitely not a lie. In fact, difficulty is what challenges us. It pushes us past our limits and allows us to succeed. We have to understand that we usually encounter an obstacle because we have accomplished something our intellectual ability at the time was not capable of. This doesn't mean that you turn around and walk away from what you started. We have to recognize these obstacles and challenges as opportunities to grow. I have a little story to shed some light on this. So when you start a new grade, your classes usually get harder, right? And at the beginning of this semester, I started Pre-Calculus 11. I know, tons of fun, right? And when my teacher first introduced a topic I didn't understand, I was like, nope, no way, not happening. This makes no sense whatsoever. How about we just rewind and, go back to last year? Obviously, I wasn't allowed to do that. So I put in the time and effort to learn by asking questions and practicing, not just because I needed to pass the class. This applies to anything else you do. You don't just turn around and walk away from what you started because you don't know what to do. Instead, you take the time to learn how to do it. You research and you practice. For the third and final reason we all experience temporary inspiration, you might actually want to pay attention. When we start something new, we usually only see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes we encounter a few missing train tracks, but those can be put back together. There's something more to it that we always fail to see. We obviously dive in deep when it comes to something we're passionate about, and we get so caught up in starting that thing and getting as much done as soon as possible that we often forget about the journey itself. So my cousin graduated university last year, completing his 4-year undergrad, and he once brought up this idea of seeing the journey from the beginning to the end. The example he used was that when students choose to pursue a post-secondary education, they start with a degree or diploma that they'll work towards receiving at the end, but as they begin their studies, they forget about all of the crucial skills they're actually gaining. When most people see the piece of paper they receive at the end of it all as their key to getting a good job, right? So people work hard and try to stay on top of things, but when you go for a job interview, they aren't going to ask you, "So, how are your grades in school?" You acquire so many valuable skills during your time at school that you'll often forget about. We're constantly learning and gaining experience that often goes unnoticed. And the reason I bring this up is that we lose our inspiration because we're looking for a linear path to the finish line. This narrows our focus so much that we reach this point where we become so caught up in something that we zoom by so many new opportunities and hidden paths that could lead to a whole new world of discovery. We become far too focused on time over travel. Now that I've either sufficiently bored you out of your mind or completely blown your mind, I have one last thing to share with you. So when I first heard there was going to be a TEDxYouth event here in Kelowna, I thought, wow, that's pretty cool. I should check this out. And I did, and obviously, because it's like my dream to have done a TED Talk, I decided to apply. Right now, you're probably thinking, okay, yeah, that's pretty cool. You had a good idea, worth sharing. You got accepted like everyone else giving a talk. And I agree, it's pretty awesome. But there's something you don't actually know. When it came to pitching my idea, I thought, wow, temporary inspiration. You've been thinking about this for years, so why not try your luck and see if you can do a TED Talk on it? And I had to film a video for my application talking about my idea. I tried filming this video every day over the course of a few days. And one day, I sat down and I realized my initial confidence in my idea had gone from like a 10 to a -3. I was sitting there, kind of in a daze, like, what do I do? How do I make this work? I've been trying for weeks to clearly explain my idea, and it just isn't fun anymore. I was tired. I got bored of thinking about the same thing over and over and over again. And I realized I had completely lost interest in my own idea. Let that sink in. I had experienced temporary inspiration while trying to explain temporary inspiration. I know, incredibly ironic, isn't it? I was literally, well, not literally, but metaphorically kicking myself because I was so astounded that I had somehow managed to experience that. It was so hilarious yet extremely disheartening at the same time, but I don't think I'll ever forget that feeling. So how exactly did I end up here then? Well, I felt exhausted after having had such a realization, but I thought, no way, I'm not letting this be it. I was so excited at the start of it all, and I became determined to go through with it. And so I filmed my video and clicked submit. That small thing I did, talking to a camera for less than 2 minutes, gave me the opportunity to stand here today on a TEDx stage and share this amazing idea with all of you. I don't know about you, but I think that's pretty awesome. I want to leave here today hoping that my talk and all of the talks after mine don't simply leave you temporarily inspired. Embrace your passions. Put in the time and effort to excel in them. Improve your skills. Yes, you might have to work for it, and it's going to be difficult at times, and you might even shed a few tears, but you shouldn't let that stop you. Temporary inspiration is quite possibly the biggest thing standing in the way of your dreams. If you can learn to face it, you can do anything you want. The possibilities are endless, but it's up to you to take that next step. And after all, the worst thing that could possibly happen, you realize it was all temporary inspiration.